Network. Marsha works at the intersection of creativity, accessibility, and advocacy. Tonight, Marsha challenges us to see accessibility not just as an accommodation, but as a catalyst for creative freedom and expression. Moving on, thank you for being with us. Paola Carrozo is a Miami and New York City-based disability activist, creator, DJ, and consultant, and she is redefining what it means to live unapologetically. As a proud advocate for disability rights and inclusion, Paola uses her platform to create spaces where everyone belongs, thrives, and feels seen. As a consultant, Paola works with organizations to move beyond compliance towards truly inclusive design. I know for sure we still have a lot to learn, and it's an opportunity for us to also reach out and learn from each other here. Tonight, Paola brings her sharp eye for systemic barriers and her lived experience navigating Miami, and I am also incredibly proud to say that she serves on the Transit Alliance Miami Board of Directors. Caro, also known as Caro the Tour Guide. Caro is a tourism professional and transit advocate who shows Miami to the world while fighting to make it better for locals. As a tour guide, she curates experiences revealing layers of Miami that Miami's residents don't always see. Caro occupies a unique position because she represents her city to visitors while witnessing how car dependency shapes our city. She understands that how we move determines who gets to access opportunity, culture, and community. Thank you, Caro, for being here. And last but not least, Robert Wertheimer. Robert is a director of sustainability at Stratus, and he serves on Miami-Dade's Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So if you want to get more involved on bike ped issues, definitely reach out to Robert. He lives at the intersection of professional expertise and personal practice. His work focuses on sustainable systems, and his commute is on two wheels, and they're not motorized except by his own feet. So it's a bike. Robert understands that you can't have true sustainability without accessible multimodal transportation. Tonight, he's going to illuminate the blind spots on how cities approach climate action. Thank you all so much for being here. I am going to ask you all to share this. Wait, one more for the room. Okay, folks, are we ready to get started? Hopefully that doesn't happen again because the speaker is right there. How's the volume level, by the way? Can people generally hear us? Okay. It's a little hot in here. Well,
it's all the hot people.
It's the whiskey.
All of you both. That triggers me a little bit because my dog's name is Whiskey, and I really wish she were here.
He's with you in spirit. That was
She
just
is, she is indeed. Okay. Alright, folks, let's get started. As I mentioned, there's a lot that goes into our decision every day of how we choose to move, what is our commute like. Some of it unseen, some of it very conscious. I want to ask each of you to, one by one, answer how do you move around Miami? And how does your commute or how you choose to go from point A to point B shape your perception of the city?
I drive around all of Miami whenever I have to be out and about. But I do oftentimes take the metro when I know I'm going to be in places of proximity. So like I can park my car at Dayland and then I'll go wherever I need to go. But I'm okay, there we go. I am oftentimes faced with many Miami metro stations being completely inaccessible, either broken escalators, broken elevators, and we're living in a time where this is just unacceptable, right? We know the city has the budget, we know they're investing it in a lot of different things, And it seems like it's a purposeful neglect on specific individuals. And it's not just disabled individuals. You have seniors that rely on this service. You have mothers, young mothers, who are with their babies and their strollers and who need the accessible measures to be accounted for. And I think oftentimes when we think about accessibility or when we think about disabled people or even bike riders, it's like it's the extra afterthought. It's like, oh, she needs the accommodation, so I need to go out of my way to give her the accommodation. When I travel, it's a whole process, and it's like I need to get there 2 hours early because MIA is a mess, let's start there, but also because oftentimes there are no wheelchairs available for me to just get one on time and make it to my gate on time. And if I don't make it to my gate on time, they make it seem like it's my fault, but I was never even late. So it's like, I feel if we were to treat accessibility not as an afterthought, but as just a cultural thing, it would definitely make my life, and I know the life of many people, easier.
I mean, to your point, Paula, the fact that you even have to wait for the wheelchair really shows how wide the amount, like the selection of people that might need that additional accessibility is. And I know when we think about transportation, I experience this. I don't need any mobility assistance usually in my day-to-day, but when I have my bike with me, I need that elevator to work, that escalator to work, and the pool of folks that would benefit from it is really wide. I might have to move further away. That's really fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I move around with a vehicle, and I've grown up in Florida. I've only known the car-to-car park go in, but when I've had the blessing and opportunity to go to cities like New York, Chicago, I've even taken the train from LA to San Diego, I realized how efficient it is to just be able to relax during a commute. It's not only just an accessibility thing, but it's a comfort to know I can have a great night out and not have to get in a car. Or I don't have to think about, I have a 45-minute commute. A lot of developed, beautiful cities worldwide, this is a normal thing. So I feel that a beautiful city like Miami would definitely benefit from being forward-thinking. We need the basic need of being able to have an option outside of just Ubers, or it's always been vehicle for me, but I think that we're too far behind. Because if you travel around going to Singapore, there's really no need for your vehicle unless you're going far away. So I'm always driving, but I'm hopeful that one day I'll be able to just do the basic commutes through train, even we have trolleys. I've seen that Miami has had trolleys, but they're not always on time. So just getting used to the system and not look at someone using public transit as like, oh, why are you using it? But like, oh, great, she has that option.
And sorry, to follow up on actually for both of you, for the following speakers, I feel like you touched a little bit about this, but I definitely would love to hear a little bit more deeply. You mentioned how other cities have this access. How do you feel like that lack of access shapes what you feel about Miami, or forward thinking? Like, is this somewhere that in the long term you feel like you can stay here with the current level of access compared to other places?
I love Miami. I love the city. I love the people. I believe in the potential. That's why we are here. That's why I'm here. Personally, it wouldn't push me out of the city, but it would encourage me, because of the love I have for the city, to keep doing the work that we're doing so that we can get there. Because I truly believe that Miamians are very motivated. And once we all unite and say, hey, this is what we want, I know that our commissioners, our mayors will look into it. And we have some respective cities that have actually been doing it. So once we set our mind to it, I believe we'll be able to do it. So I wouldn't leave the city, but I know that we'll get to that point one day where we have options for transit.
Great. Yeah.
For me, I think it goes into the psychological aspect of being disabled and just the fact that it feels like you're never seen. Like no matter what you do, and it feels like you're the one that has to catch up to the system, and you're the one that has to, take on the defeat, and you're the one that has to be the trailblazer. And it's like, at what point is my tax money actually going to be allocated for the right thing? It's not rocket science, it's just how things are supposed to work. I had the experience of being able to live in New York City, and of course New York City is a really drastic change, and not every elevator was working at every station, but there were certain systems that you would know when things weren't working ahead of time, or there was a notification on an app that will let you know. Like there were certain systems put in place that you would be allowed to do more things with your time. As a disabled woman, you have to allocate your time in your day in so many different ways. Like I have to get ready 3 hours before an event because the clothing is a struggle to put on, the shoes are a struggle to put on. Then I have to, crap, there's no elevator working. Like it's just like a domino effect of how everything affects you psychologically. And it comes to a point where it's like, at what point are we going to actually progress into a system that not only accepts you but sees you and wants you to be a part of the city and society?
I definitely use public transit very often. I work in tourism, so meeting groups in very different places. I'm very grateful that we have the metro line that goes all the way to the airport, so I use that very often when I have to go pick up a group there. And even that
Was a bit. Oh, that's because I pressed it.
I gotta keep it over here. And even that took us a while to get as well. It was 2012 that the orange line was created. And that's after the taxi lobby was undermined by the Uber lobby. So it was like, okay, finally we can push this through. And there's so many plans that we have out there ready to go that are just not being implemented, and it's really crazy. But I use public transit very often, as much as I can. I like to get creative. I like to get my steps in. I'm grateful to be able to do so. Actually, it's almost a year today. This month last year, I was hit by a car wearing these heels, so there's a little, you can see the rip in the heels. And so I experienced a small portion of what you guys experience on a day-to-day. I wasn't able to walk for 2 weeks. I was in a wheelchair and I had to fly, so I went to MIA. I had to get the wheelchair service. And it really puts so many things into perspective, now facing this experience on how one little step, one little crack can ruin your entire day, can set you back 30 minutes, an hour. I mean, you sit out in these gates and you're like, you can't move because you literally can't move. So you're just waiting for someone to get your wheelchair, to help you out with the wheelchair service, to take you to the bathroom. And it's definitely something that we shouldn't have to think as an afterthought, because in all reality, we can all be a part of the disabled community, or I don't know what the proper terms are. Yeah, okay. It's something every single group can be a part of. It doesn't matter what color of skin you are, it doesn't matter what age you are, everyone can experience this, so we should be accommodating this regardless, because you never know. Do it for yourself, do it for your kids, do it for the people that are here right now, of course, but it's like, we have to convince the politicians, to think this way. But yeah, I am a very avid user of public transit. It's great, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but there's a big tourism perspective to it, that it's something we're not taking enough advantage of. We're missing out on a lot of money, and we're creating traffic by not, improving this infrastructure. But I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit, so we'll talk about that later.
Same question, Robert.
That was a long time ago, and a lot of really wonderful comments that you made that I've already been thinking how I can respond to that. But so I, as Kathy said before, I get around primarily on bicycle. electric bike in my life. I use that as my summer bike, and I think that's a game changer. I'm following up on other people's lead and calling bicycle lanes bicycle mobility lanes, because if you notice, in a lot of communities, that is really, again, hate to, kind of fall on some other things. I really think biking and e-bikes, e-scooters are really most important. You don't have the infrastructure cost, maintenance, large vehicles like buses. And I know if we do things smart, we'll be able to create the infrastructure to make it safe. So I think, again, we'll go into part of it later. People think I'm nuts for driving a bike, and I don't disagree with that. There's really a lack of infrastructure. Whenever I ask people in bikers, do you ride to work? The answer is invariably no. And why don't you? It's not safe. Why isn't it safe? There's no infrastructure. So I've been on a mission. Lori's here someplace. He knows that I've been on a mission to really get the policymakers to expedite. This has been in the plans for decades. And we've done a fraction of what has been in the national plan. At this rate, we're maybe going to fulfill 500 miles or so of bicycle mobility lanes in another 8 years. I'm not going to be around there. I don't know if Miami will need it as a resilience solution as well. So it's equitable. There's so many great things. But one thing that, especially in this context of different abilities, of accessibility to transportation, it's really a resource allocation as well. If you're able to bike, and most people's commutes are under 5 miles, most are under 3 miles, most are single car uses. So that's why, I live within 5 miles. I can bike almost every part of my everyday life. So by doing that, I take a car off the road. I'm able to let accessible buses and other forms of transit do what they need to do. So it's like you don't want to take a jackhammer, to put up a little pin in the wall and hang a picture, right? So it's the same thing. You want to kind of deal with the appropriate level of resource for what you need. And well, I'll throw one more thing in because I was very proud. I guess it's about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that I was part of the team that put together the Brightline. So that was a regional transportation transformation, right? That I think started to spark to get the idea of transit and being a real possibility here. So what you guys were saying, I didn't hear it, but I kind of felt it, that things are getting better. Like there is the possibility that there is more transit options in the station.
And to your point, I think also, I mentioned that it's perhaps maybe some tough budget years ahead. Even then, I'm actually going to stand because the sort of like pushback. I'm going to go and mingle with the crowd. Let's be honest, Miami-Dade, City of Miami also, most of our municipalities are very rich municipalities compared to the rest of the country. We definitely generate a lot of, there's a lot of bragging about our GDP, but sometimes it feels like that money doesn't make it back into our infrastructure. Be it beyond me to oversimplify what it takes to build public transit, because it is not by any means an easy feat, and it is an expensive endeavor. It is a worthwhile endeavor nonetheless. But there are more inexpensive solutions that, absolutely everybody wants a train that goes to their neighborhood. I think we're beyond asking that question. Everybody wants a train. That being said, those trains oftentimes are 10 years down the line, 10 years in the making. And we definitely need to figure out ways to expedite those processes. But a bike lane is not 10 years down the line. A good sidewalk is not 10 years down the line. And oftentimes these very important projects get overlooked. As far as I'm concerned, you can throw all the money and fund all the transit things. And I use a big umbrella for transit. I do mean also the pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. But there's definitely stuff that we can do in the now. So thank you for bringing all those things up. And now I'm gonna go a little bit one by one, and ask you a question and really wanna get deep into it. Paula, I'm gonna start with you. Historically, city planning and transportation, as you mentioned, often treats accessibility as an afterthought, more like a compliance checklist oftentimes than a core principle. You'll hear things like, well, it is ADA compliant, but honestly, that bar is sometimes sub-level, and this is Miami, so there's no sub-level. From your work as a disability consultant, what systemic failures do you see repeated across our transit system? And what would it look like if instead accessibility was built from the ground up?
I think one of the first systemic failures, I think that there's no data when it comes to knowing what your disabled ridership is. There's no data into knowing how really usable are the elevators, escalators, all of these things. Like, there's no data in that. I have a good friend of mine who contacted me last September because she was very angry that the transit system in Miami was failing its riders. And we got together to work on a project of figuring out ways to make sure that transit in Miami is accessible, that there are enough elevators, there are enough escalators that are working. We did the whole thing. We weren't able to fully complete the project because we realized that midway there, the escalators were fixed, the elevators were working, and we're like, oh my God, God heard our prayers, everything is, working, thank God, we don't have to go into these commissioner's office, etc. And it turns out, 3 months after, 6 months after, we're seeing the same failures continuing to happen. And at this point, it's just systematic. Like, there is no motivation from the city, from the county to want to get these things to work, which at the end of the day, it just makes life in the world more accessible for the disabled rider. We tell disabled people all the time, you're too lazy to work. You don't want to work. You don't want to go to school. You don't want to be a part of life. But if disabled people have the accessibility to do these things, we wouldn't be home. Of course we want to work. Of course we want to be part of society. We are one of the most oppressed and marginalized communities. So I think it's just a matter of understanding that for everything to change something, you need data. We reached out to a whole bunch of studies, universities, even the county, and no one had reports on disability ridership, disability accessibility, how we're moving around, how we're doing things. So to come off as a one-off and be like, oh, I'm fine, and this is my experience, it's too niche. It doesn't count. So I think that's specifically one thing, and it's just understanding that this lack of infrastructure does affect everything in a domino effect. Like, it's not just that one person, that one disabled person that couldn't make it to work. It's also that senior that couldn't make it to their doctor's appointment and they really needed to. It's that mom that couldn't take their baby to the doctor's appointment. There are just so many things that we don't see because we're not living it. And it's asking the question, why do we have to live the pain of others to fix things?
Now I'm actually going to pass it to Caro. Marshall, we'll be back to you in a second. Caro, you strike a really terrific balance of representing Miami visitors while also curating experience and knowledge. I myself have learned a lot of history facts from you that honestly most of us locals wouldn't get to experience otherwise. There can be still a lot of friction though, especially when it comes to our affordability crisis around tourism and the visitor economy, and for locals, there can be a lot of friction between the tourism economy and locals. Do you think our mobility landscape can exacerbate this friction? Like, does it further it? And from your perspective also, how does tourism and the service economy shape mobility?
Great question, great question. And there's, I think there's an underrepresented community there. And when it comes to transportation, transit, tourism can really, hold on, let me restart. When it comes to public transit, when it comes to mobility, public transit is everything for tourism. It's huge, and we're really missing out on some great money in our economy by not having the infrastructure in the city. People are coming to Miami, traveling to Miami, and having to spend $400 or $500 to rent out a car. Not only are they having to spend this amount of money to rent out a car, now we have another car on the road. If you go to Miami International Airport, you'll notice a huge parking garage there, and that's where the rental car companies have it. And not just one parking garage, there's lots all around, and you just go all around the airport and you realize these are all the cars that we are adding to the roadways every single day, with inexperienced Miami drivers too. So they're going on these roads, they're the ones who are going really slow on the left lane because they don't know when their stop is, especially here when it comes to the construction. They're struggling, they're stressed, and we're stressed behind them because they're like, we gotta go to work. Okay, and you're going 20 miles per hour on the 836. Chop it up. And it's affecting us, it's affecting how we're driving around, it's affecting their experience, because how can you possibly have a very enjoyable vacation if you're having to stress on getting from point A to point B? So we're missing out on all this money that could be going back into our economy by these people using our public transportation. They could be bringing that money back to us. We're losing out on that, and we're also affecting our own roads, because now we have hundreds and thousands of unnecessary vehicles on our roadways that we shouldn't have. And this is something that I really like to stress upon, because as you know, when we talk about public transit with Miami locals, sometimes people can get a little bit snooty and say, oh no, I don't take the bus, that's for poor people. That's not at all the case. First of all, the most advanced civilizations in this earth have great, incredible public infrastructure. So that's number one, is the case. Number two, it's not just about you. It's about the people that are coming in here that we don't want them to get on the road. We want our tourists to be on the train, on the bus, so they're leaving us alone. And we can get on the roads and have a nice, safe, easy-going time on our commutes back and forth. So I think those two things are really intertwined, interconnected with transit, and then going into bike lanes and things like that. I've been a tour guide for almost 10 years. I've done every single type of tour you could imagine. Some of them are bike tours, and having an accessible and a safe infrastructure for bike tours has brought many companies and tour guides money, because we're like, okay, this is a safe place to take people. These are inexperienced riders from all over the world, but we can take them on this bike lane because we know that it is safe and it is good. So it's bringing money back in that sense as well, which is sort of like a second-hand sense to bring money into our economy. So public transit and tourism are very intertwined. They heavily affect the locals, the economy, and that's really where I'm loyal.
You don't need to call me, you can call Paula, we'll get everything running. And yes, as a musician, as a creative, having great transit is what will bring and continue to bring the wonderful things we do have, like the art basels. We've had, what's the music week? Film week, Ultra is what I'm thinking of. And we do try, they try to encourage. But if it was part of our day-to-day in Miami, it would be nothing for us to say, no, why would you get a car? You can just take this, and it will be here on time. And if it's 5 minutes late, there's one right behind it. Just like when you land into a New York, you're actually kind of out of your mind. You'll get there faster if you just take the M60 into the city and go where you need to go. And I say this as someone who was at one point intimidated. I love being able to say, no, I'm going to take my $3.60 and head to the city in lieu of standing and sitting in traffic. And so many people around the world love Miami, but they know that, one, our driving is different. You have to be an experienced driver and brave to commute. And also, if you're here to enjoy it, our music, our culture, and our events, you probably don't want to worry about where am I going to park. Parking's going to be $300. I have to be afraid of it being towed. I think that without having options for transit, we are excluding an entire group of people. We're missing out on a lot of money, a lot of creatives. Even when we go on tour, we go to strategic cities that we know people can get to. And can get to the show and would want to come out to the show. It's not a trek to get there. And the venues tend to be accessible. We have to look at all these different elements. And so if we can step up the game in Miami, we love Miami for everything that it is, but if we go that extra step, we're going to bring a lot of revenue, a lot of opportunity, and a lot of great talent to our city, for sure.
Full music fans. They never come here, and I was like, is it us? Are we not something? Maybe we have more to do for them to get here. Because I feel like there are fans. Or at least I am here. I will buy your tickets. Anyway, thank you so much, Marsha. Robert, back to you. Robert, I'm gonna get straight into it. Do you see blind spots when cities are pursuing sustainability in their designs? And you know, I raised the issue of sustainability even beyond transportation. Ultimately, we do know that transportation emissions are our biggest source of emissions. But even beyond that, you know, in terms of flooding, in terms of living in a place that with sea level rise and climate, in extreme climate events, if we want to, use a broader term, are holistic approaches in terms of user design, energy efficiency, and mobility a standard practice at this point in Miami?
How much time do I have?
About 7. At least 5 minutes.
No, it's a great day. It's a great question. There are responses that are very challenging, and I think for the most part, the infrastructure is not being done. Holistic sensibility is there progress being made? I think so, but it's really hard to gauge on the ground because as you know, public infrastructure is so small, so glacial pace. Let me pick up on some of the things that they were saying. That's when I talk about sustainability, it's often about taking a step back, getting a broader perspective, and it's really all about humans. Right? That's what, McDonald's, any great American institution, it's value. That always wins out. So what they're proposing is having the alternative to what you guys are working on day to day, is making the alternatives more and making that extension. So I don't know how people still run in Miami, right? It is stoic. The cost, the time, the stress. I mean, I get to work. Love it. It's probably not really. Yeah. It's like, all endorphins, and it's like if I was my car, wow, it's the same amount of time. It's still 20 minutes, but the American dream of, my autonomy. Just go and feel the wind. There's no way. But the good news is, I think, Miami-Dade County is lead for cities. You didn't know that. City of Miami is lead for cities. I think they're both gold. So LEED is the U.S. Green Building Council, their rating system. It's a means of measuring the type of systems you have in place for sustainability and resilience. And LEED for cities leads them for leadership in environmental sustainability. Okay. And they have it for cities and communities as well. And again, just like sustainability, I'm saying before, taking a step back from one perspective, I think their first pillar for good governance is to have the stakeholders talk to one another. So that is the one thing that, in feedback I see all the time. FDMP doesn't know what GPO, doesn't know what DTPW is.
Before you go into that, there was a lot of acronyms, so.
Florida Department of Transportation is FDOT, did the big money with the state. Then you have the Transportation Planning Organization, which is by the state county, they help allocate the budget and the broad planning. And then the implementation is done at the county level by the Department of Transportation. The county, talk to Rory and other people about like, hey, how come we can't get a coordinated network? Seamless network that I can know, I know where you like, other than the Venetian, I'm not sure where it's starting. But it's really hard to know that you can go from point A to point B, get this, as far as I know, it's barely, because we have a great route, and then it just stops. So, one of the cases that happened is you have the county, you have the state, it was 34 municipalities. So in New York, when it left 24 years ago, there was no license. Now it's one of the most likable cities on the planet. It's fantastic. And they've done it appropriately. So where you need to on a big arterial road, something like US 1, they have a separated shared use path. It's really separated pipeline. That is suggested. It's very challenging and frustrating if you're like it's better than the alternative. And on the local streets, you just have a green strip, no problem. Down here we have a long way to go, and mostly, like St. Paul's and saying, it's about creating a culture, getting the community, really share the road and have a plan that all modes are welcome.
You mentioned New York City is like sort of a good example of where that's progress in a relatively short amount of time. Do you think we have 34 municipalities? Is there any municipality doing it decently?
Well, again, there are pockets. To me, the first, the analogy I use, I'm not a historian, but I assume Miami was developed, the first road. It wasn't like a super highway from 36th Street to 48th Street. It was a gravel road, right, from 80th Street all the way down to downtown. Right? And it was just like that. Then it got paved, and then there were drainage, and then there were curves. Right? So this whole development of increasing infrastructure. So that's why I've been trying to talk with a lot of the family agencies. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. We're not going to be the Netherlands next year. Right? It would be great, it's ideal, but let's just get like, and I'm an outlier, like community, they want nothing but safety. And Painted Lane is not as safe as accelerated, for sure. But for me, the first thing is connectivity and allow that equity that happened. Look at, I'm going to long time.
No, it's just for you to hold it.
Oh, sorry.
A little closer. Project. Opera voices.
Thank you. Yeah, so it is just challenging to have all the different places. Oh, yeah, it's really loud here. No, that was it. Well, I was drawing on a little too long. I could go on for a while about this, but yes, there is though, or I'm trying to think, with your help, I think Trans Alliance should be a big advocate for this as well, to get FDOT, to get the TPO, DPW, get the 34 municipalities, planners, public works agencies, and stakeholders, hearing disability advocates, getting bicyclists, getting older folks, and just, everybody that has a stake in it and see what can be done.
I mean, to your point, there was only a little peak, but for those that do not know, there's no centralized authority or decision maker when it comes to our mobility in Miami. Never mind just transit. Like, yes, there's MDT under the Department of MDT Miami-Dade Transit, under the Department of Transportation and Public Works, that is the county. But even the trolleys are not run by the same entity. Who puts in the bike lanes really depends on who owns the road, and there's a lot of levels of who owns the road in different places. So people are like, US 1 sucks. I feel like it's pretty safe to bash on US 1. I mean, I'll bash on a lot of roads, not gonna lie. But then, you know, maybe you're complaining to your locally elected official at the city level about US 1, and they're probably gonna agree with you, but they also have very limited power in how much they can affect that, right? So the more layers, and I say this as an advocate that came into this whole ordeal as a transfer writer. I am not an urban planner. I do not have all the design knowledge that Robert has. But I know what I experienced as a transfer writer. And Paula, actually, you mentioned something earlier that, hey, what if it's just Paula? Like, I can't like make a whole deal. I can't do a whole advocacy thing just based on my experience. But I can tell you, as someone who talks to a lot of transfer writers on transit, if you experience something, odds are that a lot of other people are also experiencing something, and you know that, but having those hard numbers really matter. So I think we're getting a little bit better in terms of capturing good data around not only transit, but like other mobility options. I still think we have ways to go, especially when it comes to pedestrian use and cyclist use. It's fully dependent on is FDOT doing a study of this road because they've already decided that they're gonna enlarge it, and they just need to know that not enough people are using it because it's not currently safe, to be like, okay, yeah, we can further add more, we can add more cars to this. So there's a lot of moving pieces of the puzzle, and to your earlier point also on, you know, I do think that it's also an issue that oftentimes advocates around mobility in Miami, there's not a lot of wins. So I understand why people want to go for like the safest possible, like the fully protected bike lane. But I think also sometimes we have to do even a little politicking. Like, can we get a step closer? It's also, you know, it's like a blow also when you're like, well, we could have had that thing just a little bit more. But sometimes it's better to have something. And at the end of the day, they're repaving roads all the time. So if every time we can get closer, it's also, you know, it's a lot of steps in the right direction.
And as a design professional, I'm very conscious of having the client always tell you, here's our budget, we can't do it. And we just went through a budget cycle, so if we could do more or less, that's a win. Like you're saying, a step in the right direction.
Okay, now we're gonna move into our sort of closeout section. Okay, so this is again gonna be a question for each of you. You've already helped sort of like put points in this larger vision, but again, we at Transit Alliance, we say that we are advocating for Miami built for people, not cars. Again, with emphasis on the for people part. When I say that, and I invite you all also to picture this for yourself. When I say a Miami built for people, what do you envision? What do you picture in your mind's eye?
So I guess I'll go before Robert, so give you a little break there. Definitely a Miami for people. I grew up in Kendall, so for me, car indoctrination was deep. I didn't really fully understand how indoctrinated I was. Even my brother would tell me things all the time. Oh, you know, why are you driving one block to go to the Publix? What's wrong with that? You know, no problem. But when we left Colombia, he was 8 years old. I was 3 years old. Medellin, Colombia has an incredible public transportation system. So he was used to having some sovereignty even as a child, and he was already exposed to that. So he had a semblance of what it meant to have that, and that's why he had that deep thought. Now, when I went to university, I did study abroad in Denmark, and I was there for 6 months. And that was like my first big exposure into what it was to be in a civilized society where everybody's riding public transit, it's clean, it's safe, it's reliable. I mean, we would literally ride our bikes to the club. Like, it was so fun, so different, and life just drastically changed for me in that perspective. So that's when I really realized, gosh, our world is really not made for us. So when you say that for the people, it really hits deep because we are built for the car. Everything convenience is for the car. I got looped into really Transit Alliance and other alliances when I went to an FDOT meeting regarding the 8th restructuring about 3 or 4 years ago, and they were proposing putting in a bike lane, so I was going in support, and I was very excited about that, but then they quickly told me, oh, we're not going to do that, we're actually going to do nothing. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Like, what was the point of this entire meeting? You brought us all here, you brought your professionals for absolutely no reason, you already had made your decision. And I just started to really see, first of all, how indoctrinated we are as Miami people. A lot of us haven't left Miami, haven't experienced what it's like to not live in your solitary car and see what it's like to actually have community and have accessibility in other places. So it's a big culture issue that we have that we need to change, and we can do that one by one. I know I have changed the minds of many of my friends. What? I've got my friends on the train, and it's just little by little changing the culture in Miami to just make it something that's normalized to do it. And truly, I say it all the time. I'm like, when I'm on my bike, when I'm on my scooter, I'm like, the streets are for the people. All right? The Lord Jesus Christ did not make this earth for a private vehicle. Like, no, we're out here to enjoy the trees, to hear the nature, to be outside, to breathe in the air. That's what this world is for. It's not for us to just be in road rage all the time and be mad at our neighbors all the time. So yeah, hopefully we do start building more for the people in the future.
I do want to forget, because you got energized at an FDOT meeting where you were told, haha, no, there is an FDOT 5-year work plan meeting next week, next Thursday. If you're here, you already signed up for a newsletter. I'm glad to tell you. So you will get more details on that very soon.
Can you repeat the question? I want to make sure I answer.
When you think of a Miami built for people, what do you picture?
I honestly think we need to start with being humble and understanding that even though we all go out and see this magic city, it's not magical for all of us, right? And I think it starts with how each and one of us experience it differently. Going back to transit, when I go to New York, yes, I struggle in the stairs. Yes, I'm falling every other step because there are not a lot of working elevators, but there's always a New Yorker that comes, grabs me by the arm and says, I got you. In Miami, unfortunately, we don't have that. We're not humble, we're not human, we're just chasing superficiality after superficiality, the most expensive car, the most expensive this. And I think that maybe being more human, being a little bit more humble, and when you see that there is a senior trying to access transit, a disabled person trying to access transit, a mom with a stroller with a couple kids, and the elevator isn't working, it is your duty as a human being and as a citizen to offer help. I've given up my seat in the bus for a senior. I've given up my seat in the bus for someone who needs it more than I do, and I have half a leg. So if I can do it, I'm sure many of us in this room and in Miami can. Those are my 2 cents. Be humble and be human.
Yes, I would echo all the sentiments here. It really does start with up here, our mindset, approaching it in a different way than I've been indoctrinated. Okay, if you don't have a car, I mean, what, got a car at 15, because that's what I was taught. If you're gonna go to college, you get a car. There's no other options. But I will share this. I was dual enrolling in college, and before I got the car, I was very young, so I was 15, and I got into this program. My mom was like, well, I can't drive you because I have to work. I used to walk and take 2 buses, and it would drop me right at the Loop at Valencia, BCC, in Orlando. And if I did not have that, there would be no way for me to have gone to my dual enrollment program. And so just thinking about someone saying I was, you're disabled, maybe you're not motivated. No, sometimes it's the accessibility. And just them having, so I took 2 buses, and I had to walk a little ways to get to the other bus. I was still able to get there for the first 5 weeks of the semester until I got a vehicle. So I think that a city like Miami, for it to put its people first and make the city about them, they have to start with the mindset of saying, hey, we have so much talent that might be is being hindered because we haven't provided accessibility. And like you said, it's a community experience to be able to get on a train or get on a bus and head to an event together. It's a human experience. We're used to just being in our shell in our vehicle, but there's a lot of culture that we're missing. There's a lot of experiences that we are missing because we don't have these options yet. So I'm hopeful that we will move toward that very soon.
So even though we started off saying, that I think we shouldn't talk about Carlos week, I am going to pick up on what Nova was saying and kind of create that dichotomy, because that's what I envision. I don't know if people remember what it was like during COVID, the first month, the first 2 months. Bike sales skyrocketed. No cars on the street. The air was fresh. People were biking and smiling all over the place. It was a vision. And worldwide, when you look at graphs, we're on, I mean, I don't want to be a doomsayer and talk about, greenhouse gases and stuff, but we've been off track forever. And there was that one summer where all the cities throughout the world went the right direction. So very briefly, I will hit that dichotomy because we're talking about the car centricity of urban design, right? There's parking lots everywhere. So when I was working on Brightline, I was living in the Keys and commuting. It was because of this that I moved to Miami. Right? So actually it was this that I moved up. It was working on Miami Senior High, so I apologize, it was a long time ago. But I would, once a month, I wouldn't know even how to get out of bed because of the backache. I was sitting in a bucket seat for 2 hours each way, and then in a computer all day. So my, buds, quads, everything just like, didn't work right? So we're not designed to do this. So that's one thing. So it's good for your health, it's for the community health. Driving is awful. The idea that, cars are idling outside of a public school, like hundreds of them, waiting to pick up their kids for hours, creating an air quality problem for their own children. It's insane to me, right? So it's like these little things, one on top of the other. When you're talking about designing for people, it really does mean not designing for cars.
Thank you all. And let me see. We still have 2 minutes. So for the scheduled panel, but I think we can close out with one. I'm not gonna say rapid fire because I want you to dig deep and say what you truly believe is the right answer here. But I think from what I heard, which was experiencing our Miami outside of a metal box, being kinder to one another purposefully, where potential is not defined by how you get from point A to point B. And honestly, breathing fresher air, feeling healthier, and being good to the earth is some of the things that I heard. I'm sure that if we were to go around the room, that list would expand. And always feel free to shoot me an email if you have my phone number. Send me a text, Kathy. This is what a Miami Milford being one of cars feels like to me. We've definitely gone hard on the non-cars. That being said, the car still has a car lobby, so they got plenty of strength if they want to clap back. The real hard-hitting question is, what is one first thing, one first step? Maybe it's collective, maybe it's individual. You started talking about this, so feel free to talk maybe more in the collective sense, but what is one first step for us to get there?
I honestly think for me, it's just realizing that disability is part of culture. Like when we see all the different cultures that exist, we kind of leave it on an ethnicity level, and on a skin color level, and on a religion level. And it goes so much more beyond than that. Culture is your experiences. Culture is the circles you surround yourself in because they feel like family, because they feel like home. And if you feel that somebody in that circle is being hurt or it's being neglected from being part of society or getting to work or being able to coexist in life, it is your duty, it is your responsibility to act upon it and do something about it. You know, when you're a little kid or when you have a mom and you're getting bullied at school, your mom is the first one to show up and tell that principal what's up with every reason. So I feel like we forget that culture is more than just your skin color, it's more than just your race or your ethnicity. It's part of what family have you crafted and how are you taking care of that family. There is no reason why in a city like Miami, with the budget that it gets, with all of the different international affairs that we have, that we don't have a proper, accessible transit system that welcomes the disabled user, that wants to be a part of life. So I think it's first understanding that, and second is reporting broken elevators. It's reporting broken escalators. If you guys really want to be the change, then the change is literally emailing your commissioners, calling them up, saying, hey girl, hey, you know, this is going on in your district, in your municipality, this is happening, and we need to fix it. My friend is in a wheelchair and she can't get to work. So-and-so can't get to their, like, it's just the facts. And until we don't all collectively showcase the importance, and I'm not just talking about the diversity and inclusion and equity umbrella, it's just the culture umbrella. We all have a right to exist in the same room, so let's make it happen.
So the first step, right? I'm gonna keep it on even a basic level. Let's try to connect our cities. Like, I've never been to Kendall. I've been here 9 years. And it's just because I know it to be a trek. I have been to, what's the furthest place no one ever wants to go? Homestead. I've been to Homestead. It's like a known thing. No one goes to Homestead. So if there was like some type of connection there, and then from there I could figure it out, it would just bring us closer together because it's such a beautiful place. There's different people, different cultures, different restaurants and places we could go to, but if it requires driving on our highways, we're missing out. We're missing out on opportunities, venues, and different experiences. So if I could start with one thing, I would implore our leadership to at least connect us, our cities.
Well, this is a great moment to announce that the South Day Transitway should be opening quite soon. So you're going to have extra large extended electric buses, new electric buses, not the ones that are broken down right now. New electric buses that are going to go all the way down to Homestead. That being said, well, actually, the beautiful thing about Homestead, when I moved to the United States in 2010, that was the first place I lived. Not proper city, Homestead, but Naranjo Lakes. I have a love-hate relationship. I think mostly because of teenage years, you know? Teenage feelings. But the Homestead downtown area is actually right adjacent to the South Day Transitway. And we, I think, Transit Alliance, just did a 24-hour transit triathlon, so I walked, biked, and rode transit for 24 hours all over Miami-Dade. I didn't quite make it to Florida City and Homestead, which I wanted to stop at because of a broken down bus at 3 a.m. from Ventura. But in the coming months, we are in sort of preparation and celebration of Get Miami-Dade, which I will tell you a little bit more about in 2 seconds, once folks are done. We will be having more mini triathlons, not this 24-hour thing that, honestly, we had folks that joined us for over 12 hours. Really impressive. Shout out to Yeti. I don't know if she's in the room. Well, if not, then wherever she is. But we, I sort of started this by saying, we want to go with you to your neighborhoods and hear from you and from your neighbors, how can this be better? How does this start on your, your front sidewalk, or non-existent sidewalk if it isn't there yet. And we want to go down to Florida City Homestead. And we want to do at least 3 of these in the coming months. So if you feel very, very strongly, hopefully I have so many to pick from and so many people that want to come on these things that it's a battle. So please make it a hard decision for me. Thank you, Marshall. always happen who laughs.
So, first step. I feel like I'm kind of doing it because I think the end game, I think, like we were talking about, is to have really safe, wonderful, ways to get around for disabled, for kids. I mean, I thought this would be a slam dunk. Safe routes to school. Like, who doesn't want your kid to be safe riding to school or walking to school? Turns out, I'm sorry if I'm, again, anybody in the transit sphere, but safe routes to school it sounds like it's making bikes and walking more accessible. It's really a repair program, right? So they take it out of the public works bucket and they put it in the school's bucket. So if they need to create, fix a crack in the sidewalk or put up a new sign that fell down, that's a safe route to school. So it's been very discouraging to find that out. So I'm, still trying to make the safe routes to school happen in a real way, right? So the first step, I would love to, invite Transit Alliance to help make inroads. Brownsville, Liberty City, Little Haiti, North Miami Beach. When you look at, I have to say that Miami-Dade County has done a huge amount of work providing analyses and data. There's a lot of data that isn't provided, I grant you that, and I can get into that too. There's a whole thing on bicyclists where I see presentations talking about, oh, this is a cyclist, and the data is collected by this app called Strava, which is voluntary, you have to pay for. So I was hoping Sue Kowalewski or someone from Miami 305 would be here tonight, and we can make the suggestion that, as part of smart cities, which is very expensive infrastructure to get the digital, sensors happening for traffic and transit, to just have something as simple as an app funded that people can do it without the payment wall, without the paywall, and then you can start getting real data for bicycles. That's a big of the outside. So I think when you look at the data that the county has produced, it's called a high injury network, and it's all, well, not all, but primarily in the denser, lower income areas. So let's be, to follow up on, I don't call it humility, I call it generosity, and seeing each other, right? To be more equitable and start in those neighborhoods and give, affordable, equitable access for transportation.
I think the first step, we can complain about not having a village, but you can't complain if you're not a villager. So to Paula's point, it's our duty to help when we see help is needed, and not even just help, but a smile. Smile when you're passing by, when you see someone on the train. Even if they look a little creepy, just give them a smile. You never know. If you're having a bad day. There's security on the train. You'll be okay. But even just small little acts of community, I think is really a big step into it because culture needs to change. The culture needs to change here. We need to create a more inclusive culture, a more loving culture, a more harmonious culture. And it just begins with each and every single one of us encouraging a friend of ours or taking a friend, forcing. I forced many friends. I'm like, I'm not going to the Hard Rock Stadium on the I-95 days. We're taking the train. And I force my friends all the time to take the train with me, to take the bus with me, because at the end of the day, once you do it one time, that's all you need. The fear is wiped away. The fear of not knowing is wiped away. So you already know how the whole process goes. You realize how easy it is, and then you're more inclined to do it. So it really just begins with us, our individual actions, the way the energy that we bring into the world, and when we're on these trains and on these buses, just bringing a good, loving, and positive energy. I know it's easy to be negative, but I feel like that's the easy default of our human nature. But it's a broader sociological aspect as well. Our individualism, I think, in the U.S., it's too emphasized here for you to be an individual. I don't know this person anything. I don't owe anyone niceties and politeness, but that needs to change. We do owe people a polite human nature. We really, really do, because we are a village at the end of the day. So just be a villager.
Thank you all so much for sharing not only your lived experiences, but also your deep knowledge, also your inspiring words. Folks, this is the conclusion of our scheduled programming for today, but I did promise I would tell you about Kid Miami. And actually beyond that, I mentioned a couple of upcoming events. I do consider, showing up and being here on a Thursday night will be a first step for a lot of you in terms of getting involved, of broadening your village. We always like to give plenty of time for mingling because we know that new connections are forged that way. And I do want to highlight that Gay Miami Day, which is not just about Transit Alliance. I know it keeps
You know what? I am loud. Hey! Gay Miami Day is coming up. What Gay Miami Day is, it started as a day of fundraising and now has turned into, I believe, 5 full days of fundraising for not only our transit advocacy organization, but so many great initiatives around Miami-Dade. It's an opportunity that when you donate, a lot of that funding is also matched. So you have, your gift has greater potential. We at Transit Alliance are completely independent. A lot of people ask, and I'll address this a little bit forward because the work that we do is a bit odd at times, especially when it's so advocacy heavy, right? And we get our funding from a myriad of ways. Yes, we have grant funding. Yes, we do sometimes work with government organizations. But actually, so much of our funding not only does come, but has to come from independent sources like individual donors, because that's what ensures that we are string-free to push for the really hard things that sometimes has a commissioner calling me up and being like, why are you doing that? Why do you choose to do that? And I welcome those calls because oftentimes that means that we're pushing some right buttons. This is the first experience for a lot of you. This is also the umpteenth experience for a lot of you, all of us. I know that we have a lot of supporters in the room that give their time, their money, and honestly their energy to this cause. So for that, I thank you so much, and I hope that this was, a good first or ongoing step for you. Okay, thank you so much for being here. We definitely remain in contact with you, and just a round of applause for all of you. Amazing work funding efforts around the country for sponsoring this event and a myriad of events for Week Without Driving around the country. You can find them online, but they have a lot of amazing initiatives, especially around Main Streets America. And we just want to say, round of applause because we are recording this, so we'll get it.